It's time to rock and roll!
Hey, how you doing? This is Gina Versa with the Waffle Press podcast. Just me solo today. Diego's away, my co-host. But we had a really cool guest on the show. This is his third appearance, so that's cool. Everyone, this is Anthony Ferrante. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Awake this morning. Good to have you on. So yeah, it's all good. So Anthony, it's been like we were trying to figure this out right before recording, but I think it's been like 3 or 4 years since you've been on the Waffle Press podcast. So welcome back.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Everything's been doing good. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. Keeping busy, doing different things. We just it's been a very interesting year since well actually 2 years because of all the COVID stuff and
Yeah.
uh but had a nice kind of variety of different projects. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it seems like you were staying busy. I know you had like a Christmas movie, NIX that we're here to talk about, and then you had like another Asylum movie, so it's really cool.
Yeah, actually, and there's another one that we did that hasn't really officially been announced that we can talk about as well.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool. Yeah, we could
yeah.
talk about that a little later. So that'd be great. Yeah, if you want to make an announcement or anything. But yeah, just kind of just getting into it. Just kind of as a movie podcast, we usually ask our guests what they've been watching. Have you seen any interesting films before we talk about next?
Uh, I haven't had a lot of time. I saw Barbarian a couple weeks ago, which was an interesting horror film. Thought they did some nice stuff with that. Um, I did I did take the time to go see Jaws and
Oh,
on
nice.
IMAX, and then I was doing some filming on a movie, and so in New York, and I went and saw it on 3D again like a week later. So I
Nice.
had, Jaws is just, obviously
Yeah.
gold standard when it comes to shark movies. So
Hmm.
but I heard good thing. I don't like 3D movies at all. I hate them.
Hmm.
They kind of irritate my eyes, and so and at a certain point it was just becoming a gimmick, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't interesting, which is why they don't really put out a lot of 3D stuff anymore. But I mean, Jaws, it intrigued me because people kept saying it was amazing. So seeing it in 3D was well worth it. I was really impressed with how they converted it, especially those opening shots and stuff. It was impressive. But the IMAX is even more impressive because I think there were like two. I've watched that movie so many times, and there two things that I never noticed
Hmm.
ever, and or maybe I noticed the very first time I saw it, but um, I remember the scene on the boat with Quint and
Hmm.
Dreyfus and Roy Schneider,
Yeah.
Brody, when they start talking about all their scars and stuff, and Brody's just standing there, and he lifts up his shirt for half a second, and on IMAX you actually see what he had. He
Hmm.
actually see like a bullet wound in his chest, in his abdomen,
Hmm.
and so it's like he's about to tell them the story of whatever happened in New York, which I'm assuming, this is just extrapolating, is what the reason why he ended up on Amity Island, is to get away from the crime in New York or something.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you ever saw that. Because I the detail, because it was so dark. It's so dark even on the, even with the
Yeah.
4K on DVD, Blu-ray, and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I never saw that. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's like, it's interesting, and the interesting character thing is that while they're all bragging about their shark things, Brody doesn't want to talk about what really happened to him,
Hmm.
even though he had an opportunity. So I don't know. Did you ever notice that before?
I have not, and I only saw the 3D version when it re-released last month, and I didn't catch that. I wonder like if there's like a deleted scene or anything.
No, no, it's not deleted. It's in the film. It's just
Okay.
that because of the lighting in the boat, because it's
Hmm.
night,
Yeah.
When he lifts up the shirt, you know, just briefly, you know, you can't really tell the detail because it's lit a certain way.
Hmm.
But on IMAX, it's so big, you actually see the detail of, oh, there's a bullet wound on his abdomen.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the second one, which
Uh-huh.
again, maybe again, maybe I've just been blind the entire time, but you know, after they're at the very end, they're on the boards going on the water to get home and stuff, and they have their line, and then the movie cuts, and then you cut to the credits, right?
Hmm.
Um, for the life of me, I always wondered, well, like, okay, did they make it back or not? But on that wide shot, like where you start seeing all the credits,
Hmm.
that's actually them arriving on shore in the far background.
Hmm.
If you, I don't know if you ever noticed that
I
either.
I think I might have, like, if you like kind of like you see them just like way like in the foreground.
Yeah, yeah, it's very it's so tiny. And again, when you're on home video, you know, you're not
Hmm.
uh video, whatever it's called now, home
DVD, yeah.
entertainment, DVD.
Stream.
Yeah, what is it anymore? It's just home entertainment because it's
Sure,
like
yeah.
all these different formats.
Hmm.
But yeah, they're so tiny that you just think it's debris or something. But when you see it on even in 3D version, you get to see really clearly. But in the IMAX, you see them. They actually the entire time, the duration, because the credits too. Once the movie's over, you're not really paying attention how many people watch the credits. Well, I do,
Hmm.
but I never really paid that much attention because it just looked like debris, or I thought it was always shark debris or something. But it's them coming to shore and getting off that makeshift thing. So
Oh,
if you watch the end credits and you watch that other scene, it's two things that never caught before, and I've seen that movie like way too many times.
yeah, yeah. Now I can imagine, yeah, directing shark movies. So that's the pinnacle. But yeah, I don't think I've never noticed that first one. That's really interesting because it's like with like Chief Brody and everything adds to his character. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
what was
neat.
so surprising to me. Like, oh wow, like, you know, it's a new, and there was other things too that if you're watching it on IMAX,
Hmm.
you know, there's just detail, there's just things, like, you know, a lot of times you're just watching. If you've seen a movie a ton of times, you're distracted. You're, oh, there's Jaws, you're watching it, and you get distracted with something, come back. You're not like immersed into the world. But when you're in a movie theater, you know, especially one that's so big or in three dimensions, you know, you're starting to look at details that maybe you never saw before. You
Yeah.
know, and you're you know, even some dialogue too that gets muddied in the mix.
Hmm.
You know, on home entertainment, like at the very beginning, there's a lot of like little one-liners and things that, like, oh wow, oh, the
Hmm.
other thing was Quint's dude. Quint has a dude, like, like he has this sidekick, like at the like
Oh yeah,
when
when he
he,
does the scratch, right?
yeah, when he does the scratch. But then the guy is all throughout the movie, but he's like a, you know, he's just like background, but he's his dude, like
Huh. Sidekick.
his yeah, his butler or something. It's just,
Huh.
it's bizarre. It's like, oh wow, I never noticed this guy being so prevalent. But again, it's just those little details that get lost when you've seen a movie 80 times.
Yeah.
That's why I go back to, uh you know, there is something to be said for seeing movies on the big screen.
Hmm. I agree.
You know, they're just something that, you know, you're forced to pay attention and watch the movie all the way through, and you learn new things. That's why whenever there's a, you know, one of my favorite movies, if it goes to the archival theaters,
Hmm.
you know, I'll try to watch it again because it's just it's just worth the experience. There was a retrospective of some Cronenberg stuff right before Crimes of the Future came out,
Yeah.
and I went and I saw Videodrome
Okay.
on the big screen, which I've never seen on the big screen before, and it's an incredible. Again, it's incredibly uh, it, prescient film, kind of like, you know, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
it just kind of foretold of a lot of stuff that eventually happened with society, and that was like whatever 1982 or 83.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was a double feature with that and Existence.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
And Existence I saw when it came out, and it was okay,
Hmm.
uh, but back to back, they're of the same kind of uh, they're of the same universe in a weird way. They're you know, because that was about being plugged into video games, and again, that was another it's again another thing where kind of Cronenberg kind of saw the future.
Yeah.
And then I think of these movies, I think Crimes of the Future becomes sort of the trilogy of those, that kind of body horror that he was talking about in those movies, about
Yeah.
melding technology with the body and stuff.
Yeah. He's
But
like a prophet.
Videodrome, it's funny because when we were doing the premiere, I couldn't be there for my premiere of NIX, and they hired a body double for me, and
I
we
saw
had
photos.
we had
Uh-huh.
a Zoom link and a speaker, so I
Hmm.
could actually communicate with the people at the premiere and experience it, even though I couldn't be there. So I was Brian Oblivion from Videodrome. You know, I've shed the physical form, and now it's just exist in cathode
Yeah.
rays, and so you know, long live the new flesh, which we're doing right here on the podcast. So
Exactly. Yeah, we're communicating through Zoom
yeah,
and everything. It's good. I was really curious if you had if you saw Cronenberg's son's movies like Possessor or anything.
I no, I actually haven't seen those, but
Okay.
I'm interested in them. Have you seen them?
I did. Yeah, that was probably my favorite film of 2020. I'd really recommend Possessor.
Possessor?
Hmm. It's really creepy. Yeah, it's the same vein of Cronenberg, excuse me. But I believe, yeah, his son is like maybe a little more weirder. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, definitely have to check it out. But
We definitely. I will.
yeah, before we go to Nick's, start talking about. Did have one question for you because I asked you this before. I'm not sure if you ever said on air, but talking about things that you're watching. Have you caught up on the new season of Rick and Morty? Because I'm not sure if any listeners know you're a huge fan.
Oh, I love Rick and Morty. I've seen two episodes of the new season because I was not around the first when it premiered in September.
Hmm.
So I'm catching up with it right now. A buddy of mine, Jacob Hare, is over there. He's directing, and he won a couple of, I think his episode one a couple years ago
Hmm.
for Rick and Morty, and he did. I watched his Night People episode, and he's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's just so talented as an artist and just imagination. And we wrote a script years ago called The Key that we've been trying to get made for a very long time.
Hmm.
And actually, you know, Jake was around when we were coming up with pitches for sci-fi, and Sharknado was a brainchild of working with Jake. He was like, Sharknado. I'm going, yes, that must be a movie. And years later, it became something.
Yeah.
So no,
Huh.
Jake's incredible, and Rick and Morty just is just, you know, back crap crazy. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of they just consistently do things that, you know, TV
Hmm.
uh, is afraid to do,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
always, and you never know where it's going. You
Hmm.
know, it's great having unhinged characters that you could just kind of put on screen and go, yep, they're going to do that, and yeah, it's
Hmm.
going to be wrong.
Yeah, like Mr. Poopy Butthole and yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the night people episode, I think it's called Night People,
Uh-huh.
is just so bizarre and weird and
Yeah.
brilliant.
I haven't seen that one yet, but I'm catching up, but I'm really excited to check it out because yeah, new season so far it's been good and I'm just glad to get payoff for Evil Morty, so
I
that's
was that now I might have missed that. I might have missed that episode.
oh,
So
okay,
there's
it
that.
was finale last year, yeah.
Oh, the finale. Oh, the
Yeah.
finale. Yeah, no, I saw the finale. I like I said, I think I missed the first two episodes, and I jumped in and on the two middle ones just the
Oh,
last
okay.
couple weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's been good. But we're here to talk about Knicks. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about kind of the basis of like this project. You wrote it with James and Barty, Skylar, Caleb, and my good friend. He's been on the show before, Woodrow Hancock. And you guys, you've written a couple, films. One that I worked on, Awaken the Shadow Man. That was my first PA gig. in film, so always appreciative for you guys for that. But
Yeah.
you guys are wrote a few films. Talk a little bit just about the genesis of this project.
Well, I was involved in Shadow Man as a producer. I think I did a slight polish on it at some point. When I came on board to kind of put a little more suspense or something in it, but I didn't do much. And then I did some pickups for them on it in post. But other than that, that was a great first experience. Really great uh, group of guys, very supportive, and they came to me probably 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Maybe it was right before COVID hit actually, and they had this project that they were developing and said, would you be interested in directing it? So, I was looking at the project and we're going, okay, there's something here. I think we could do something. And they already had a place booked in Georgia on the Appalachian Trail that was going to shoot that April. And so we started prepping, and then COVID hit. And, that kind of put a monkey wrench in everything because we didn't know, because everything was shut down in April at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what this virus was, and if we went there, what was going to happen. Like, what if someone gets sick and you're
Yeah.
out in the middle of the Appalachian Trail, and how do you get home? And so we tabled it and lost money on the push, but then we used that time to develop the script more over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, we were struggling with the ending. That was one of the hardest parts of it. And I just on a whim, I said, okay, let me figure something out. So I sat down and like in half a day, I came up with this 15-page ending or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, this is great. Let's do this. It's like, if we do this, we got to throw everything else out because
Yeah.
it sort of makes sense, but it doesn't. And at that point, we started talking about that the original concept, we might have to rethink it completely, and that was a huge conversation. And so we knew like essentials that there was two brothers, and that
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to have an iconic creation in it. um and but everything else was kind of up for grabs once we realized the direct, and we had a mother figure in there. We was gonna go toward the I don't think the mother figure actually was in that
Oh,
version. No, she wasn't. It
okay.
was actually I think it was more of the brother. Yeah. So the, again, it's such a blur. So I said, look, I'll take a crack at this. Once we settled on a name, I looked up folklore, and kind of I knew we want what kind of thing we wanted to do with monster, and I found this half face in water, which was called a NIX. It was from
Hmm.
German mythology. It's also called the Noxie or the Nocken, and I go, and that image of the half face in water is just eerie as hell. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's something about that. Everything else about the NIX was trashed because it's like it's a water fairy. I mean, it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
So, but just this haunting image of a half face in water, it intrigued me of where is this thing coming from and what is it. And so we sat and we had a bunch of sessions talking about it. And then I go, I'll take a first crack at the script. Give me
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks, and I'll go in and present something to you that I think could get us to that ending that we were talking about. And so I did that. I remember actually finishing it in a hotel room and
Oh,
sending it over to them.
interesting.
Uh, and uh, and then we had a lot of notes. We talked about it. Um, before they went in and polished, there was one element in the movie that everybody, including the investor, was like, yeah, this is a little crazy. um you know do a version without it.
Hmm.
And I go, okay, I'll do a version without it, but it's not going to work. And then I did a version without it, and they're going, it doesn't work. It's like, okay, yeah, but we did it, so everybody's comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with the version with that element not in the movie. And then we spent the next 2 months polishing the script together, and we were going to shoot in Los Angeles, couldn't afford it. It was a year after COVID, so it
Hmm.
was still prevalent with
Yeah.
out there.
Cases. Yeah.
So it was very, very, very hard to find someone to let us shoot in a house,
Hmm.
which was kind of a key thing in the movie. And kind of to move in and do that stuff, yeah, it just was not going to happen. And then I had shot a thriller a few years before called Forgotten Evil in my hometown in Antioch, and they were always very, very supportive. And we were able to kind of not have to have gigantic permit fees and all that stuff. So I reached out to them, and they said, yeah, you could do this. And then we found a place that was an art gallery. It's called the Lynn House. It's
Hmm.
downtown Antioch. That was a former house that was turned into an art gallery that was kind of dormant during COVID, and they made a deal for us to make that our production headquarters for 3 weeks. Plus, we used it as the house inside the movie. So we just brought in furniture and decked it out. So,
Hmm.
and knowing that the script, generally when you write independent movies, you try to be as non-specific as possible. Like, it's a house, it's a business,
Hmm.
it's a park. You don't go into like this beautiful museum with glass architect. You don't do that stuff. You
Yeah.
keep it very generic, because then at least as you're scouting, you can find things that could open up the world, as opposed to oh, we got to find this place and can't
Hmm.
shoot there.
Yeah.
And so once we knew we were going to Antioch, I knew I had access to my high school I went to. I knew I had access to the movie theater there. I knew I had access to a lot, the pier. So another polish was done to open up the movie, as opposed to being very non-specific, narrow places. We now had access to very specific and gorgeous looking places, including
Hmm.
the Heritage Museum, which it's Antioch Heritage Museum, plays into the film. We shot the scene with Michael Pare there, but also we shot the funeral scene there.
Hmm.
Um, so that just started opening the scope of the film. And in addition, because we were shooting in my hometown and there were some other interesting elements in it, the movie started becoming a little more personal.
Hmm. Interesting.
Strangely, and it became a little more unintentionally meta.
Okay.
So that movie theater, the
Yeah, I was
Campanelle,
gonna ask about that.
I used to go see movies there all the time when I was a kid. And so we put one of my short films on the screen, called Bum
Oh.
Rap, that one of
Uh-huh.
the very first things I shot. And then I'm in the theater watching my short film.
Saw your cameo, yeah.
and then on the marquee is first my in joke for Santa Mira, but also Dynamite Jones. I forget which one it was. Maybe it was Dynamite Jones Ignited or Meet Dynamite Jones.
Okay.
But my very first movie, Dig Wayne played Arlo Ray Baines, a detective who was a former blaxploitation actor who became a cop and sucked at it. And so we had this whole kind of I came up with this whole movie biography for him. So I put that on the Dynamite Jones, but then I had Dig come back to play Mr. Balaco, whose first name is Arlo. So
Mhm.
there's a little, and also the scene that he's in, there's a poster for Boo behind him. So
Oh, okay.
there's this weird, like I said, there's this weird meta-ness. It's oddly enough, the element of Jack with the video camera, or having a video camera, came, I think, from Jay, not
Mhm.
from me. So
Okay.
having a character that was in the movies and stuff, it wasn't that. Again, it was sort of, okay, let's go for it. And then it kind of added to that extra layer of personalization to the
Mhm.
movie.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, because yeah, I was gonna ask you about Easter eggs, but I guess you kind of told us all. But I was wondering, just going off of that, can you talk a little bit about like Antioch? Like you shot another film there, like grew up there. What about like shooting there is like so special? I think.
Well, I mean, it's a great small town,
Mhm.
and the community has always been supportive. I mean, I was making short films there, and I had access to a lot of stuff that probably wouldn't be accessible without a lot of money if you were shooting in LA or somewhere
Yeah.
else. I mean, anytime you're making something in your hometown. And I was the movie critic for years with this local paper, so
Oh.
they've always been very, very supportive of everything I've done. And and bring attention to the downtown, the riverfront is just absolutely gorgeous, and
Yeah.
it's people don't realize how beautiful that area is. And it gives a chance to kind of showcase and show off the town. And again, it's fun, to kind of go back there to actually shoot in my old high school. Is just
Hmm.
it's just bizarro.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, a
sounds
lot's
surreal.
changed. And yeah, we shot in the old science classes, and they're doing remodeling, but it felt like a time capsule.
Hmm.
Just a lot of what was there it was just very, it was very weird.
Yeah.
But again, it gives a look, it gives a total look and vibe and a feel that that you can't afford when you're an indie movie elsewhere.
Yeah.
It gives you a scope,
Hmm.
because again, when most of the original script was they're at a house, they're at an office,
Yeah.
they're at a house. It's not they're at a movie theater or they're at a school, because that whole school thing was added. I
Hmm.
mean, there was scenes with these characters, but it wasn't those locations. And yeah, so and also shooting in Antioch, it's very, very really small. Everything that you see uh in the movie is like literally walking distance away. The
Hmm.
Lynn house is literally like 2-minute walk to the Campanile, which we use sometimes as base camp, which is a 2-minute walk to the pier. So the high school's probably a 5-minute drive. But
Yeah.
whenever there were things that we needed to do or needed to find, it was like, oh yeah, we'll go down to this place and go grab that, or you can go down to this place and go get that.
Hmm.
And there was always someone willing to help. We had uh, uh, Katie really helped us find that house in Rio Vista, or the Foster's Bighorn in Rio Vista, which we used for the end of the movie. That was not in Antioch; it was in the town over. But yeah, it just opens up the palette, and it makes it feel like a movie.
Yeah.
It gives it scope.
Yeah.
And then we were trying to find a place for the woods, which was very difficult. And I did a lot of research online trying to find anything, and I found this place called Shingletown that was in Reading, which is about 3 hours away from Antioch, which
Okay.
was pretty much what you see in the movie. I mean, we basically lived in those cabins, and that's basically how we did it. But yeah, so we went there for the last 4 days or 5 days of shooting,
Hmm.
and then it snowed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it wasn't expected.
Yeah, it's a Sharknado lesson. It's like whatever the weather is, it doesn't matter if it changes. It's like, well, it's Sharknado weather. So if
There you
someone ever asks, like,
go.
well, hey, it was sunny and then it was snowing. Oh, it's Sharknado weather.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, I was gonna say, yeah, all the locations, your hometown of Antioch, it looked beautiful on film. So, also, definitely,
Thank you.
yeah, it looked very interesting. Yeah, it was like,
Ryan Broomberg shot it. He did a great job. He did
mhm,
an excellent job as DP on it.
yeah. I'd love to eat at the Caribou Lounge at the end. It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony, can you talk a little bit? Um, Working with Dee Wallace, you're saying she was originally, or that character of the mother, she wasn't in the early drafts. Can you say anything how Dee got on board?
Yeah, well, the character wasn't in the early drafts, but in the version that we ended up reconceptualizing, the character was there. And honestly, in my back of my head, it was I always kind of thought it should be Dee,
Yeah.
because I'd worked with Dee twice before, and so it wasn't lost on me that I would at least try to approach her and see if she'd do it. And it worked out. I mean, it took a little bit of trying to figure out how we were going to get her up to Northern California
Hmm.
and how many days we needed, because it's the characters throughout the movie. It's not
Yeah.
like come in for one day and knock out everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, so I approached Dee, and kind of begged her and said, "Look, I really want you to do this. This you're the only person that can pull this off." And I was correct. She was the
Hmm.
only person that could pull it off, because that is not an easy role to do. It is so layered and so complex. And you zig or zag one way or another, it could totally torpedo the whole tone of the movie.
Hmm.
And she was attracted to the depth of it. And I'm just, like I said, I'm grateful. She decided to do it without any makeup for the most part.
Hmm.
She really dug deep into this kind of really disturbed woman who's dealing with grief of the loss of her daughter,
Hmm.
and how it's affected her for the last 25 years. So we were very fortunate, and at the Downtown LA Film Festival, she won Best Actress for the
Oh,
role. So
that's
I'm
cool.
I'm really happy. Look, she's been in all my favorite directors have worked with her, and I feel
Hmm.
grateful that I've worked with her multiple times. And you know, it's it was a great experience. After we did that, what I call the birthday party scene,
Hmm.
I just was sitting there with my jaw on the floor, like, I can't believe we just did this, and that was amazing acting. I mean, just the way it was shot, and the performances, and the
Hmm.
levels, and it was just, I knew we had something special with that scene.
Yeah,
And
she.
when that was early on in production, so I knew once we did that we were in great shape for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, she really dug deep for those scenes. It was like really, like obviously she's great in like all her movies, E.T. But towards the end, without spoiling anything, like some of her scenes were really intense. So it was really cool to see her again.
That scene in the bedroom, like, she was like, "I want to do this," and I'm like, "Really?" "Yes." I'm like, "Okay." It kind of makes me feel a little uncomfortable that we're gonna go that far with this,
Uh huh.
but let's do it. And so we did it, and she was correct. It needed to be disturbing and intense, and very layered.
Hmm.
So I was very
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
happy we went that direction.
And she brought like her A game for it, so it was like really cool. Uh, you said she was in another film from favorite directors. I know from E.T. What other favorite director films has she been in?
Oh, I mean, look, Spielberg directed her in E.T.,
Mhm.
Joe Dante, The Howling, Peter Jackson, Frighteners, Louis Teague, Cujo. I mean, oh my gosh, she's so good in Cujo.
Mhm.
And I think, I think I even said something to someone on set, is like, there's no justice in this world if she can't be recognized for what she's putting herself through in NIX. I mean,
Yeah.
we've always known that she's been just a phenomenal actress. I mean, just look at all the body of work that she's done. She should have been uh, acknowledged for all that stuff.
Mhm.
But again, this movie once again proves how underrated and how incredible she is.
Yeah.
Any actor who's worth its salt, uh, watching this, can understand how difficult it is, the stuff that she had to do.
Yeah.
It's something where she has to not be self-conscious that she's putting herself out there in a different light, without
Mhm.
makeup or anything. It's putting herself through the ringer and going to these emotional places. This is a film that, it's a horror film, but it's also a movie and a meditation on grief and
Mhm.
trauma and addiction. But it's a lot of that stuff it's not really heavy handed. It's underneath the surface. There's a lot of stuff that I'm really proud of that we did, that we put in the script, and that we achieved, that we put on camera, where it doesn't go for the obvious stuff.
Yeah.
It's there. All these themes are percolating, but we never go, "Hey, let's all snort cocaine on the movie." Like, there's nobody. There's people not doing lines in the film. There
Yeah.
it's or they're not jabbing their arms,
Mhm.
with
It's very
needles and
nuanced.
close-ups, though
Yeah.
there are elements of it in there, but it's not in your face, because part of the language of the movie is that, the NIX is kind of always there.
Mhm.
It's the stuff it's the stuff that's hidden, and I think that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. Going off of that, you were talking about kind of favorite filmmakers. Can you talk a little bit about any influences that come to mind on this film, or any horror films that you were any sort of like that influenced you in making this? Would you say?
One of the things that I kind of wanted to do, um, I wanted to shoot it like an indie drama.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't want a slick horror film.
Okay.
I did not want this movie to be super slick and stylized. I wanted it to feel like you're watching a drama that suddenly dipped over into the horror genre. Like, oh, something just crossed over here.
Hmm.
So I mean, there are some stylized bits to the film, definitely. I mean, there's definitely the going in and out of the reality and the dreamscape and all those things that are in there. But at its core, the movie is shot like a drama. That's particularly go to the birthday party scene.
Yeah.
That you know, aside from the one small little element in that whole sequence, you could take that and put it into any drama, and you wouldn't think it was a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was stylistically a choice. You know, I wanted the house to have a feeling, and I think shooting in Antioch and definitely has its own vibe to it,
Hmm.
for this film in particular. And then once we got to the woods with the snow, it added a whole other layer that, I mean, is as much as it was a pain to kind of shoot in the snow and wake up one morning that you're going to shoot the first day and you're covered in 3 inches of snow. You
Hmm.
just go, okay, well, it's going to be part of it. And it took us a half a day to regroup and figure out what we were doing. And then we just said this is part of the language of the movie,
Hmm.
and it added a whole other ethereal style to it. I think that because we wanted to do a old school creature horror movie in a way, which
Hmm.
is a practical creature.
Yeah.
Uh, there's some very invisible visual effects to the movie. A lot of it's split screens or cleanup or stuff like that. But this movie is predominantly 99% practical. There isn't anything that is like completely holy, like here's a completely CGI creature. No, we didn't do any of that stuff. So with that intent going into it, I thought, oh, it's kind of a throwback to 1980s horror in a
Hmm.
way. But when it was done, and we were in post, and I ended up watching The Exorcist again with my daughter,
Oh, nice.
uh, and it had been a while since I'd seen the movie, and there were some interesting things that because I was so in tune with the editing. I was watching my movie over and over again.
Yeah.
I was appreciating what Friedkin did with the house. Normally, when you think of The Exorcist, you're thinking about the demonic possession and stuff,
Hmm.
and all the crazy stuff that happens. But he did a really great job of making that house a character into the film as well. I mean, there's just these long, wide shots, and it feels very dark and foreboding.
Hmm.
And I recognize we intentionally or subconsciously, there's a lot of that in NIX. And so what I realize is, even though it definitely has its lineage with, hey, let's do a practical creature 80s
Yeah.
movie, um, it actually is more of a 1970s movie.
Hmm.
Nix is a slow burn.
Hmm.
There's a lot going on in the film, and a lot of it is about tone and setting and getting you to that point where you start revealing everything in the last half of the film.
Yeah.
And so I think that was actually the biggest surprise, that we had made more of a slow burn 70s movie. Now, I wouldn't say it's slow burn, but it's a it's it there's a lot of foreboding tension that comes from them being in the basement and the walls dripping and just
Hmm.
things that are all set up that get paid off toward the end of the movie.
Yeah. That
And,
was.
and even
Mhm.
even there's a couple there's a couple other weird shots that like I realized was very 70s too, that again I think in the way it got cut
Mhm.
in the movie, the way it was edited, the scene where he's placing the papers down in the classroom, and
Mhm.
then I cut to a wide, and you see what's on those papers, and it's a very kind of 70s early 80s kind of thing, where you cut to a wide but the characters are just staring at something, and and then you cut away. It's kind of reminds me a little bit of Halloween in that respect. Halloween did a lot of that kind of,
the original Carpenter.
So, but there was never a saying, hey, we want to do this movie or we want to do that movie. We were just making our movie. We were making the NIX, and I think it was kind of a combination of interests of what we wanted to do thematically. And I also think it's very much, we were talking a little bit about, Cronenberg with Videodrome and Existence and Crimes. I sort of feel like this is the third piece of this sort of altered reality movies I've done, because Boo has some of this in and out of reality stuff. Forgotten Evil is about someone with amnesia, and so there's this kind of this dreamscape kind of world, and definitely NIX takes it to the next level. So it's stuff that I think I've always been interested in, and I think in puzzles. And I got to say that when we were shooting, I think at times, Woodrow and Jay are like, we have no idea what you're doing, but we're trusting you. It's like, yeah, just trust me. I don't. It's gonna cut together.
Yeah.
And they trusted me, and it did. It took a while to get all the pieces to intercut the way I needed it to, but we shot all the elements to get us to that point.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have worked together for few films now, so building that trust is important. I was going to go off kind of the creature design for the NIX. I really enjoyed, without spoiling anything. It really reminded me of like something from like the horror Marvel comics or the horror DC comics, like Swamp Thing and everything. Can you talk a little bit? I know we talked about like kind of origin, just kind of filming like the costume. It was in a lot of daylight, so camera tests probably needed with the DP. Can you talk a little bit about trying to make the NIX as like creepy as possible and everything? Because I thought it came off really well.
Thank you. So we knew we needed a good looking creature. Actually, it's kind of full circle with our conversation. Jake, who works at Jacob Hare, who works at Rick and Morty. Sorry, just trying to make sure this thing doesn't fall. Jake, who's a director over there. He early on he had done storyboards for my couple early films, and I asked him as a favor, hey, can you help me conceptualize the NIX? And so we sat down on the phone for probably like 3 or 4 hours, and I would show him like textures and elements, and coming full circle, Jacob Hare, who works over at Rick and Morty as a director, he's a really great conceptual artist and did some storyboards for some of my early movies. And so I called him up and asked him a favor, and we sat down and via Zoom and just kind of came up with ideas. We knew we started with the half face and water, but then coming up with textures and things, and hey, I kind of like this, and I found something with eye webbing that I thought was really creepy, because I haven't really seen the eye webbing before in movies, and so he did the first pass on the design, and then when it went over to Vincent Guastini, they did a slight update to it to make it be able to fabricate it. And I wanted a full bodysuit, and we put money into that. And I said, if we're going to do this, let's do this correctly. I don't want a CG creature. I've done the CG stuff before. I mean, certainly there's a version of this movie where you have the NIX creature climbing on the ceilings and running down the wall at 80 miles an hour. But it wasn't this movie. It was a creature film, or a metaphorical creature. And one of the rules with creature suits is that you keep it in the dark. That's what makes it look really good, and we did do that rule. But I knew it was also going to be out in the daytime a little bit. And one of the few fortunate things with the movie is we had even lighting out in the woods with the snow, so you don't have that harsh light that kind of show the rubber a little bit. So one of my favorite shots in the NIX is the NIX on that stump just sitting there, and it's creepy as hell, and
it's very foreboding.
That's a testament to the design and to Vince, with Vincent Guastini, who basically created the suit, and they made it work. So,
Yeah.
and we ended up one thing we did have to do. It was very cold when we were shooting, so it
Yeah.
was below freezing in that lake, and we knew we couldn't put anybody in that water. We did do some stuff in a swimming pool in Antioch that
Okay.
I think ultimately the only thing that survived was
Mm.
probably 2 shots from that shoot.
Okay.
And we knew we were going to have to do a pickup later. So when we came back to LA, we did a lot of the stuff, the NIX coming out of the water and attacking people. So,
Yeah. Was
uh,
oh yeah, I was gonna say the like kind of going off of like doing things practical. I was rewatching uh American Werewolf in London, and I'm not sure if you saw the new Werewolf by Night, the Marvel thing. The
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
It's on my list to watch.
Okay, it's pretty good, surprisingly good, but both creatures all practical, and I think there's like something to be said and like something a little bit more scary about like a tangible like monster that looks it looks real, looks like it has like texture to it, and I thought like the Knicks definitely had that.
I mean, my background is makeup effects, so whenever possible, I'm going to fight for practical. Um, even when it comes to blood spray, when we most of the, I mean, there's not a lot of of actual blood spray in the film,
Hmm.
but we did have to do There's that moment where someone gets hit with a blunt object, and
Hmm.
we needed to have a little assist, and they put some digital blood on it, and I'm like, no, no, no. It looks fake, and we have a
Yeah.
movie that is predominantly practical. But we kept an element where part of that blunt trauma, you see, sort of a slight hit where, like you see some of the skin, and that actually was effective, because then when you cut to the close up of the gory aftermath,
Hmm.
it connected better, and it was like, oh shit, oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's blending those two things and being smart about how you use
Tools.
the practical stuff,
Yeah.
because practical, again, it is tangible.
Hmm.
um the 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 bathtub scene where you have some blood on the wall, um that was an element, that was a thing where half of that was practical, but we realized we needed more spray in the other direction. So that's an invisible visual effect, because we put some more blood in there, but you don't notice that it's digital because we
Hmm.
already had practical. So that's I think the thing that we've tend to forgotten and we've lost in this world,
Yeah.
is the idea that we don't need CG to do everything for us.
Hmm.
If you just take the time and try to do it practical, um, it's more effective and it's more startling.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they're
So,
all different like tools in the toolbox, whatever gives you the most scares. So I would agree.
and all those movies for that we love from the '80s and stuff,
Hmm.
are, they were practical films.
Yeah, I feel like I know we talked about like at some point American Werewolf in London, which is just one of my favorite horror films, and like just the transformation scene is just so. Still, it's really startling too, just seeing him like turn into a werewolf. But
Yeah.
yeah, cool, cool. And we're just kind of winding down here. You guys finished the film, took it to post. Kind of jumping ahead, but I want to ask you, how is it back being at Comic Con? Because I got to hang with you guys a little bit before your panel in the green room, and it was cool to see you guys up there to promote the film.
Yeah, no, it was nice coming back to the con. I mean, it was a very, I mean, I obviously we're trying to figure out a pathway back to normalcy.
Yeah.
It's just still, it's kind of like it's still dangerous being in that amount of crowd with the
Yeah.
virus running around.
Hmm.
But again, it's baby steps back to normalcy. So I was glad that Comic Con got back into the swing of things, and
Yeah.
having NIX there meant a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and just getting the early word out on the movie. The film just came out digitally. You can get it on Amazon and Apple and Vudu, rent
Hmm.
or purchase. And we're this little indie film, so I'm glad we're talking about it here and we're getting the word out, because
Hmm.
uh, I think that uh, you know it's not a typical horror movie, which
Yeah.
I'm proud of. You know, we could have went and did just a normal horror film. I mean, there is a version of this movie that's normal, but when you get an opportunity, this is the gift of Woodrow and Jay and Skylar and Gary Rubens, the executive producer,
Hmm.
is they took a chance on something. And you know, we talked about this. I said, look, if we're going to do something truly indie, we know that as long as we have a creature and a good title and a good trailer,
Yeah.
people will show up.
Yeah.
But you know, let's see, can we do more? Can we add a little more depth to it? Can we make something a little more personal? Can we
Hmm.
make something that's a little different? Because that's the whole spirit of indie movie making. I could go make that horror movie with anybody else, but with you guys, let's, you know, it's going to make the same amount of money regardless of whether we have a creature that goes around murdering people every minute, or a movie that has depth, that has a creature doing things that you don't expect.
Hmm.
And so that's what I'm really proud of, that it's very, very personal for all of us.
Yeah.
And we got a chance to make a movie that I don't think a network or a studio would greenlight,
Hmm.
because it doesn't follow A, B, C, D conventions. And from the response we're getting from people, you know, I think that it's doing what we hoped it to do.
Yeah.
You know, there's a thing where you want to kind of shine a light on things that, you know, I think a lot of us have dealt with trauma. We've
Hmm.
watched people grieve and go through that, and I think there's some sort of catharsis in this film. Again, trying to give back or pay it forward, that if someone can kind of recognize themselves or recognize what they're going through, and the movie has sort of a resonance, then it's a win. You know,
Hmm.
I you know, if people were just expecting a horror film, fine, you
Yeah.
know, and you're not happy with it, I'm not saying that, you know, you're wrong. It is its own film, but we were kind of striving for something a little bit more deeper, and I'm really proud of the fact that we pulled that off.
Yeah.
And I've had people come up to me and go, "This movie really affected me in ways I didn't expect." The
Hmm.
biggest hat trick that I think we pulled off in this movie is that for all the crazy stuff that goes on in it, with all the strange detours and the violence and everything, it's a strangely emotional movie.
Yeah.
Like there's a few beats toward the end of the movie, at least three scenes where it tugs, and somehow we pulled it off, and it's because of all the stuff that preceded it. And and the hat trick that, you know, with all the horrible stuff that happens, you still have empathy for some of the characters.
Hmm.
That's like impossible to do with the movie like this sometimes, and yet I feel like we pulled that off. So
Yeah, no, I would agree. Yeah, you know, seeing like James's performance and Dee's performance, it really gives like that nuance to grief, and you know, it has a lot of depth to it as a film.
and that's another thing too. You know, we talk about D, but this whole cast is phenomenal. Jay, who's co-writer and a producer on this with us, he just put himself through the ringer. He does such a great job, and to be the you know, what you would call the straight man
Hmm.
in the film, he has to be the entree to normalcy
Yeah.
in a movie, and he has to kind of hold all the craziness together. uh, he was so committed and so focused, and did such a great job, and I'm proud of what he pulled off in that thing, because you have D, who's very flashy and
Hmm.
very intense, but he has to play opposite her in a lot of those scenes and keep it together. And that again, that's one of the harder things to do.
Yeah.
Skylar's great. Angie is
Hmm.
phenomenal. Nisha, who plays Zoe, what a find. The kids, the three kids or four kids
Yeah.
we found were just phenomenal.
Yeah. I was gonna say the
So,
child actors were really great in the flashbacks and everything. So good
and then Angela
performances.
Cole, who plays the druggy mom,
Uh
probably
huh.
the most disturbing scene in the whole movie, where she's asking the you know, her daughter to tie off her arm
Yeah.
with the tourniquet. I mean, that when I wrote that, I'm like, that's probably going to be the most disturbing thing in the whole movie to me,
Yeah.
and it was pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, and also Woodrow's cameo. Also, yeah.
yeah, Woodrow's, there's like, as opposed to a lot of my movies, you know, there's a lot of humor. This movie has probably maybe 2 or 3 little things that derive from the circumstances, and
Yeah.
Woodrow gets a nice little laugh for his little piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also talk about do we promote from the director of Sharknado, and
Hmm.
it's not a Sharknado movie, and
Mhm.
and I go, well, you know, I go back to, we were talking about a Werewolf in London. You know, John Landis did Animal House, and so when they promoted American Werewolf, they go from the director of Animal House, a different kind of animal. And
Yeah.
granted, American Werewolf had more comedy in it, but
Yeah.
it still was a serious horror film. And I go,
Mhm.
look, we got to sell what we have. You know, you have D and you have myself. And
Mhm.
if you don't use that stuff, then it just becomes another movie out there. And you know, for better or for worse, the promoting it with the director of Sharknado, I think, has helped out really well.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Any way to get it seen and noticed, I would, no wrong
yeah.
answer. All right. And last question for you. I know you're a little tight on time, but can you tell us if you want to announce anything? What is next for you? Anything to check out that if you could say?
It's been a busy year. Just recently, I did a pirate musical called Time Pirates.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Uh, that's on Tubi, that just came out earlier this month, and it's wonderfully weird and strange, and it's definitely more what people would expect from the director of Sharknado. So I had a blast doing it, because we worked with this group called SM6, this sibling rock band,
Oh.
and it
Okay.
was just every day was just non sequitur, you know, humor. You know,
Uh-huh.
we ad libbed probably an additional 30 minutes of screen time just on set. So after doing a bunch of dark projects, just being able to just kind of be unhinged.
Yeah.
uh I mean, there was one thing on set. I was joking with someone that this pirate ship was haunted by a dead parrot, and they said, Polly wants your soul. And so basically, literally 2 seconds later, I had the actors saying that. So
Nice.
it was liberating to just kind of push things. I mean, NIX, there was the other one where the German woman goes, would you like some hot cocoa and marshmallows? And I always knew that's definitely my humor, but within the context of the scene, it's so deranged and weird and spooky, but
Hmm.
it gives a little release, which is what humor does
Yeah.
in horror things. And then December, last fall, which was I was working with Asylum. We were developing uh, a couple of westerns, Butch Cassidy movies,
Hmm.
with Tubi, and they were having a hard time cracking the second film, which was more of a heist movie. So I came in and came up with a story for it, and then Jeff Mead wrote the script, and so I became very attached to these westerns,
Hmm.
and so I lobbied to direct them, and so I got the chance to direct uh, Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch,
Oh.
which we shot last fall, and then we did the second movie at the same time. And that movie's it's not a horror movie; it's a straight western. We have Ross Urgel and Joan Vanover, who's
Uh-huh.
actually in my first movie, Boo, playing Butch
Oh.
Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And then Jeffrey Combs plays Siringo in it, and
Oh,
that
that's
was the
cool.
first time I've known Jeff for years,
Uh-huh.
but to get to work with him was
That's
just like, oh
cool.
my gosh, this he I had so much fun working with Jeff. And Dee Wallace is in it playing Alice Cassidy. We had a
Hmm.
fantastic Nikki Lee plays at a place. So we just had a phenomenal cast for that movie, and
Yeah.
just
Sounds
a chance to
amazing.
kind of do an old fashioned western.
Hmm.
um, I never thought I'd be doing a western, even though I did a little one in Sharknado 6. And
Yeah.
after that, I kind of got the bug, and I was developing something, but nothing
Mhm.
ever happened with it.
Oh
So
yeah.
to get a chance to do this was just I can't wait for people to see the first movie. It comes out. The first one comes out in December,
Okay.
and it is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
so it'll be
Yeah.
it's not another thing people don't expect from me.
Yeah, definitely. I know you
That
were a fan of westerns for the longest time, so I think we've talked about some western films on Sniper Shelf Lane. So yeah,
yeah, and
congratulations.
I mean, I think the thing. Thank you. I mean, I think
Mhm.
the thing was, is I always thought I would be just doing horror films, and then Sharknado kind of opened up the world to more action and comedy, and then I realized there wasn't a lot of interesting horror movies out there to do. and the movies that I wanted to make that I'd written were so weird that no one wanted to make them.
Yeah.
And so now I just like the fact that I can jump genres and be perceived as a director of different movies with the major. I've got the bachelor's in horror, so
Yeah.
I got the so that's always going to be there. And then I have like my AA in other genres, including a Western,
Yeah,
and
you got the
maybe I've taken the Western is kind of like that extra class I took for points, like okay,
yeah, definitely. You got the
class
dual
credits.
majors. Yeah, you got the dual majors.
Yeah, so it was fun. So again, and thanks to the Asylum, they give me these opportunities also to do things that are outside of what you would expect. But it's been a fantastic ride. Like and I'm grateful that Dix is out and that it's something different. And so just keep putting things out there. Part of what I always say is that I was a kid watching these movies when I in Antioch, just going, I'd love to make movies, and that was sort of they were my friends, seeing these all these different genres and stuff, and
Yeah.
it kind of just that I was that geek, that the nerd that would just watch movies all the time. I would go to all these movie theaters, and the local theater would give me a pass, and I would just review the movies for my class papers and local paper, and now I get a chance to put some stuff out there, and hopefully it has the same effect. It gives back to someone needing a movie to watch and having an effect on them.
Yeah, I would like to I would think so as well, pay it forward. But yeah, no, this has been a really great discussion with you, Anthony. We've gone deep, talked Knicks, all your influences, and like Rick and Morty. So, I just want to say, thanks for being generous with your time. It's always good to have you on the podcast. You've been great to me. You and Woodrow have been so good. You guys have been pretty great mentors as I've been in this industry. So yeah, just thanks for being on.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for the support as always. And I'm glad I got to come back on the show and talk about another one of my crazy little movies.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to have you back on. But for now, where can people find you at? If you want to plug anything else, let us know.
AC Ferrante is my Twitter handle. I think you can find me on Instagram at Anthony C. Ferrante. NIX, you can find the trailer, NIX trailer on YouTube. And again, you go to Amazon, type in NIX movie. You can purchase, rent, or buy. Same thing on Vudu and Apple Plus, or whatever that's called, Apple TV.
Yeah.
Other thing too is we do, just again, the other thing that really frustrates all of us is that we see piracy happening, and so people are putting the movie up on YouTube or these BitTorrents, and it's like, support independent movies.
Yeah.
Look, we all are. We do this for the love, but we want to continue to make them, and the movies need to make back their money for the investors and the EPs. So try not to rip the movie. Just it's $5. Go
on YouTube too.
Yeah, go. Yeah, you can rent it on YouTube as well. Just support indie film, and that's every indie film. There's some great stuff out there right now. Terrifier 2, Steve Barton, a friend of mine, was on that. Producer. He's that movie's doing incredibly well in theaters right now. Go pay and see these films. It goes back to also music that I always say that when it became prevalent for people to rip or do all this stuff online, I still very rarely will I'll download occasionally a song like from iTunes, but I still buy the physical media. I still buy the CDs or the vinyl of artists that I like. I don't just go try to find it because I'm lazy, because it supports the arts. And you have to. There's so little money to be made, in the market nowadays. Especially how everything's now just become digital, and there's no Blu-ray or DVD market unless it's specialty. So every single penny counts. That's why you have bands that go run around having to do tours and stuff, because that's where they make their bread and butter. There's people aren't buying CDs. Spotify pays very little. So the digital space, it's gotten really, really thin. And the last thing I would say, I think it's coming out. Later this week. The single from NIX.
Oh,
We
in the
wrote
credits,
Robbie Rist
yeah.
and I. Yeah, we wrote the theme song called "Nothing," which is going to be out in the next week
Okay.
on all the digital platforms.
Yeah, from
and
the
for
band.
download.
Yeah, the band Quint.
Quint.
Yeah,
Yes,
I remember.
we're still around.
Yeah, but with
And-
that, oh sorry, yeah, with that, yeah, no, I think that's a great note to end on. Support independent film. I agree, and we'll hopefully have you back on soon to talk another movie. But yeah, thanks Anthony for dropping by. Want to thank everyone for listening. Thanks for watching. You can find us on Twitter. At the Waffle Press, on Instagram, the Waffle Press Podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. We've been professionally unprofessional.